Hi, this is Eric with BC Gurus, and this is part 3 of the Web Forms module, and this deals with contact fields. Now, when we're talking about contact fields, we're talking about the fields that describe the contact or the person, things like name and address and phone number, stuff like that. And BC has two types of these. There's the required fields, which are the first name, the last name, and the email address. And then they have the optional fields, so address, work address, website, things like that. And we'll cover those both in detail. But for the required fields, the reason they're required is BC actually links all this information together and integrates it with lots of different parts of the system, whether it's assigning the owner of a web app item or determining who's registered for an event or who's on the email marketing list and lots of different things. It uses the contact record to identify the end user. And in order to keep accurate track of the user, it needs the person's email address, and that basically becomes the unique identifier. That's how you can identify one John Smith from another John Smith. It's basically they're going to have different email addresses, at least in theory. And so it does require to have an email address on each form submission so that it can properly track the contact. First and last name are required because they're used in so many different parts of the system. They're required so you can identify contacts in your backend when you're doing administrative work, so you can fill in their names on email marketing. Strictly speaking, you could get by without those two fields and just use the email address. BC still wants you to have those, and so you can't really create a form without them, but there are some ways you can avoid that. But really, for all practical uses, they're pretty much required. So those are the required fields. The next fields are going to be the optional fields, and these are things like the home address and the home phone and web address and so on and so forth. And again, these are just the fields that describe the contact, who they are, where they are. And then finally, the next part of this video, we're going to actually look at the CRM itself and kind of see some examples of how this plays out in practice so you can get a better idea of some of the concepts we've talked about so far. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is actually go back to the form builder and kind of look at some of these fields in a little bit more detail. Alright, so we're back in our web form builder, and we're just on the test web form that we created in our previous video. And you can see we've just got the basic required fields on here, first, last, and email. And as I said before, you can't really change the required option on these. They're always going to be mandatory, so it doesn't even offer that to you. You can't delete the field or remove it from the form. They're just on there. And you can see they're pre-selected over here as well. Now these fields over here, and we're really just dealing with these fields in the Contacts tab. These others will be covered in other videos, but these fields in the Contact tabs are the other optional fields we were talking about in the slides. So let's go ahead and add a couple. We'll go ahead and add the home phone and say the home address as well. And you can see when I added the home phone, I just got a single text field over here, and of course I can change it to be mandatory or optional, or move it up and down. I could put the address fields above the home phone. But when I added the address fields, it actually added several different fields here. So I've got the actual street address, I've got the city, the state, zip code, and the country. And you may or may not want to include all of these. You have the option of just including the city or the state or any combination you want. You have to go in and customize the form, remove those from the HTML. It's not very difficult to do, and I'll show you that. But that is what you get when you add a field like an address, and the same goes for work address and those others. The other thing is you can notice we've got home phone, we've got cell phone, and we've got work phone as well. And a lot of the times you don't want to be that specific because some people have different combinations of these, and so you might want to change your form so these labels only say primary phone and secondary phone, or preferred phone number, or whatever it may be. You can change those labels, and again, it's just a matter of going into the HTML for the form and modifying that label. So it's not very complicated. So let's go ahead and save this, and we'll add it to our page and submit this guy a few times so we can kind of get a feel for what's going to happen here. Now we're back on our test page that we created in the last video, and I'm just showing you this to point out the fact that I didn't have to change this page at all because I inserted this form as a module. Simply by editing the form in our web forms section, all those changes, the address and phone number fields that we added to the form, they'll just show up automatically. We don't even have to resave the page. So we can just pull that page back up, and you can see we've got all those fields, and they show up in the same order that they were in the form builder, because we haven't actually customized that beyond just moving them up and down, but it does respect that order. So let's go ahead and fill this out so we can see the results here. So we've got our form mostly filled out now, and if we submit this form, because we've left the state field blank, we're going to get some nice validation. It says, please enter the home state. So I just wanted to show you that. So we'll go ahead and fill that in, and now we can click submit. And we've got our submission here, and on our thank you page, it shows us our form submission details. So same as before. So let's go back to the CRM or the admin, and we'll open up the CRM and see what this looks like from the admin's point. Now, when you're in your admin interface, there's a lot of different ways to get to this information. Now, I'm just on the plain old dashboard screen here, and you can see down here on the live feed section, it'll actually show you a lot of the activity that's happening on your site, including form submissions. And you can see Eric Stubbs submitted the inquiry form test web form. That's the name of the form I created, and Eric Stubbs is my name. And despite the lack of a nice cursor here, these are links, so you can click on those and it'll take you to the actual details page for that data. So that's one way you can get to that. The other way is you can come to the customer section of the CRM. Really had the wrong menu up there, but you can see that, and it's got a list of your customers, and you can filter this by date ranges and things like that if you're looking for specific data. And again, you can click on this and it'll take you to the details record for the contact. You can see on this screen, you can see my city and country and some other information that's stored in the CRM, but this is coming from the form itself. And then another convenient way to find this information, you can actually come to the search section in the CRM and search for a customer. So you can search by an email address. I can start typing in my email address here, and it'll show you the matches, potential matches down here, and you can click the link directly, and it'll take you to the details, or you can click the search screen and it'll show you a list of results as well. And then from this screen you can just click view, and this is going to load up the contact details record. Now we're inside the CRM and we're looking at the details for my contact. It's got my name on here, my internal BC customer ID. You can also search for that if you happen to know it, but you can see on the contact details screen, it's keeping track of that information. It's taken the home phone that I filled in from my form and populated that field, my email address, first and last name, of course. If you want to see the additional contact information, that's under the additional information screen, and so we've got the home address in there, and this is where you could go to actually set customer type and lead source and things like that if you wanted to. We do a video about the CRM, so I'm not going to cover all this in detail. I just want to show you where it is and how you can access the information. You can open up the miscellaneous section and see the last date it was updated and when the record was created and things like that. So that's kind of where you can go to get the basic contact information. And again, you can actually manually edit this stuff as well, add additional addresses if you can collect those manually. So you can, it's quite powerful. You can edit the details in here, or you can manage it just based on forms. So that's kind of what that looks like. Now, as I was saying, with these required fields, it needs this email address so it can keep track of the contact. So if I were to come back to this form at a later date and time and refill this out for whatever reason, or even if I filled out another form that had these fields on here, BC will allow me to update these fields. And it kind of just does that seamlessly. So you can see I changed my phone numbers from 303, 333, 3333 to the 7s version of that number. And we'll resubmit this form, and again, we'll get the same confirmation page, and I'll have been sent an email thanking me for filling out the form. That's an autoresponder. But if we go back to our CRM record, we've got the old data in here because we haven't refreshed, but we'll just go back to customers and reload this record up, and you'll see that the phone number has has changed. So it's a real nice system in the fact that BC will keep track of those changes, and that avoids you having several different contacts that represent the same person, because from an administrative point of view that can get rather tedious and difficult to deal with. So BC does a really good job of not duplicating contact records and just performing updates when it makes sense to.